So, no more hoki mai ki te Flight of the Next podcast. So, welcome everyone to the Flight of the Next podcast. We've got two games to unpack today, the men's game against Adelaide and the women's game against City. I'm here in Te Whanganui-a-Tara, Wellington, with Danny Avis on Gadigal and Sydney, Erin in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, and Denise is in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland as well. Cool. So we'll start with the women's game against City. A great turnout at Porirua Park, actually. Easily one of the best attendances I've seen there. You know, I was trying to find, usually I sit just above yellow fever, so I can kind of sit down, enjoy some food, poultry in motion, and watch the game. But I was really struggling to find a seat up there, which is, you know, great. That the City's kind of getting behind the team on this nice wee run of form that we've got. But unfortunately, that run of form didn't carry over into this game. It was a 2-1 loss. We really struggled to get ourselves into this game. Just felt like every pass was kind of getting intercepted. And even after 5 minutes, we had a passing accuracy of 60%. CJ Bott absolutely missing from that midfield. It kind of just feels like they go invisible when she's not there. Hopefully she's back soon. Danny, what'd you make of it?
I think it was a bit of sort of a come down to earth, really. I think I'm not sure everybody was, but I was certainly still probably a little bit overexcited with the signings we had and the 7-0s and the 3-0s. In fact, I think last time, Alex, you said we were disappointed only to win 3-0 away from home. You know, we were probably getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. I think some people, even on this podcast, said we'd be champions by Christmas. That was proven to be incorrect. And the injuries we've had, 4 of our first team injuries have just brought us back down with a bump. And I think this is it now. Whereas we're not going to make the finals unless we fight and unless we play well. We can't just expect we're going to walk in there just because we made some big name signings and are continuing to make big name signings. We came up against a team which I think is basically just better than us. In the end up, they were better than us on the day, and they're probably even better than us over the season. They're top of the table. They've got 2 games in hand on most people. They've been really impressive, and they were against us. Having said that, we were not at our best for many reasons. Obviously, missing Samba is one reason, but I think, as you said, I think missing CJ Bott was more important, to be honest. I think we possibly have people who can still score goals, even without Samba. Not as well, because she's probably one of the best in the league. But without CJ Bott, our defence is exposed, and it was just really noticeable in the first half how they were just basically walking through our midfield, getting to the edge of the box or getting down to the wings and putting balls across, and they had players coming up from midfield and we just weren't stopping it. And I thought at one point this is going to get really ugly because they were just going through us with ease, basically. We did manage to stem the flow a little bit, but without that defensive midfield of CJ Bott screening that back three, we looked really, really vulnerable. We tried Heinenberg, we tried Brazendale. Neither of them had that much effect last time or this time. So a lot of work, I think, they're policemen to do to work out how we're going to fix that. Because otherwise, we didn't look too bad. Going forward, we still had a lot of energy, especially in the second half. Going forward, a lot of chances. Again, still don't seem to get those goal scrambles put away into the goal. But, we looked as good as we normally do going forward, I think. It was just that when they got the ball, they were very clinical at cutting through our midfield, which wasn't very good at stopping them, and then causing our defence the kind of problems that they haven't been caused before. They've been excellent so far this season, but they just couldn't cope with the lack of coverage that I think our midfield gave them. And they were deserved winners, I think. We might have scraped a draw, but probably wouldn't have been justified. And they're sort of the benchmark we're going to have to try and live up to, even with all our injuries. And Bev Priebus's got a bit of work in our hands, I think, to get us back to the sort of standards we've seen earlier.
I don't think they were that much better than us, to be honest. I think we had maybe the first half we were pretty poor, and that's when they scored their first 2 goals. They kind of got ahead of us early, and I didn't see us scoring 2 to catch up, but I think that if we kind of had started the game as we were playing in the second half, I guess City were kind of sitting back a bit because they knew that they had the lead, but if we were playing that kind of football, I think we probably could have got something from this game. But yeah, and just unfortunately, our midfield is kind of the weak point, and I guess that's kind of what happens when your 2 main centre mids are both injured. I think having Tessel and CJ there, we would have been able to boss that midfield, but now we have neither, and the job's kind of fallen to Grace Jale to do everything in terms of attack and defence there, and it's probably too much for her. She's great at either, but she can't really do both for the whole game. But I think the benefit of our team is that we have a pretty energetic bench. So I think when Minai Elliott comes on, we had the new signing, Michaela. I want to call her Michaela because that's how it's spelt. But Michaela Woods came on as well, and she looked hungry and energetic and actually a really fun player to watch. And it kind of turned the momentum a bit more in our favour. And I think if we did have a little bit more time, I think we had 10 minutes stoppage time or something in the first half, and then hardly any in the second. But yeah, I think if we had a bit more time, we may have been able to get an equaliser, because I think we kind of finished the game quite strong. But yeah, unfortunately, you kind of can't play a poor half against a team like City and get away with it.
Yeah, I like what Michaela brought, that kind of energy of, I'm here. Put me on, coach. She really stepped onto the pitch at halftime and, brought some intent and some needed intent. They looked a little bit, whether they were outplayed or out focused, I'm not sure in the first half, but the intent was there in the second half, and we saw some beautiful crosses throughout the match from Nunn, and the one that she sent forward with Walker's head on the end of it just was redeeming, and it felt like, could this be more of what's to come? I hope so. And Walker going and grabbing that ball out of the net and running as fast as she could to halfway and said, let's go again. I'm ready. Hopefully is what this team will continue to be about.
Yeah, I was impressed with Woods as well, just in terms of the runs that she did. She didn't actually have a lot of time with the ball at her feet, so I think it's yet to be seen, what she can do with the ball at her feet. But she was constantly making the runs into the channels, constantly giving whoever had the ball out wide something to cross to or towards. I never stopped doing that and got a reward in the end, and it was a decent finish. So that's something hopeful, really, going forward, to possibly replace Samba as someone we can rely on to get goals in. And I also like the fact that when she got back to the halfway line after scoring the goal, she was dancing along to the Yellow Fever, who were chanting, and she was doing a dance along to it. That was a pretty cool thing to see.
I want to talk a bit about the first goal that we conceded from City. So Buttress kind of got behind our defence, and we were defending really low. Basically, all of our centre-backs, they were just in a line in the box, and she crosses it back. She cuts it back. It is kind of at the edge of the box. And what gets me is that no one was there. It's like we outnumbered them 2-1 in the box. We had 6 defenders. They had 3 attackers. And one of their attackers still manages to get free and find space and get a shot off. Is that an onset of CJ Bott being injured, or is that something deeper?
It didn't seem like us. Like, we seem pretty feisty, in the box throughout the season. So I was actually, both the goals, I was like, what? Like, what? It just didn't seem like us, like ball watching and not, picking up bodies and just being too deep, and just, I was like, who are we now? I mean, because we're known for a pretty solid, box full of people, willing to take risks to get that ball, and even if it means a little bit of contact or a little bit of whatever, the feistiness for those 2 goals was not there. And it was just, and maybe it was, some midfield not dropping back as well, but I don't know, we were just having a good time watching the ball.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of just a lack of awareness of where everyone was on the pitch. So you could see that the Melbourne City were almost lining up on the edge of the box a little bit, but I think everyone who was in the box, our defenders, was concentrating on where the ball was going. And they didn't look and say, okay, we need to be marking this and seeing where the ball could go, basically. They're watching the ball at someone's feet. And I think, maybe with a more experienced midfield, maybe CJ Bott's the one that shouts at someone and says, get out to the top of the D, make sure you're marking that person, or does it herself. Whereas, everyone was just sort of in the same spot, as you say, and the same level away from the goal, and it just made it easier for them to have a free shot. And it was a cracking shot. It was very nicely struck. I don't think he hasn't had much chance. But, if you give someone a shot from the edge of the box, eventually they're going to go.
I think we've actually conceded the past 4 goals in the last 2 games in similar fashion, just kind of a bit slow to, like, lack of awareness and a bit slow to the ball, kind of at that top of the box region, which is where CJ Bott should be. So I think that she's a huge gap in our team, and I think that's something that needs to be a focus on this week in training, and whoever's put in that CDM maybe focus on the D part of it and defend that top of the box, because that's where they've been causing trouble the past 2 weeks, and those past 2 weeks is when we haven't had CJ Bott. So I think we'll say twice is maybe a coincidence, but if it happens a third time, then it's probably just the pattern of what's happening and we need to fix it.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have her. I think she's probably the best player in New Zealand all around. So it's a big hole not to have her.
Yeah, so missing it. I think the positives from the game is that obviously the second half we didn't let them score. We went forward and we had plenty of chances, and I think we still look good going forward, and we've got a lot of opportunity there. Mania Elliott is just saying, "I've got to start." Basically, the way she comes on, the energy she puts in, and she just doesn't give up. I think she has to come on. I think Lara Wall, and I'm a huge Lara Wall fan, but I don't think she's been particularly impressive the last couple of games, and we've noticeably improved when she's gone off and brought on Elliott. So I could see Elliott starting the next game. I was a little bit surprised Lucy Leon went off, because I thought she gave us a fair bit of creativity in the first half. I guess there's got to be some changes, but I thought she looked like she could do something out of the ordinary and maybe put the odd ball through there. So I really liked her last season when she was at Adelaide, and I'd like to see her more with the Phoenix as well, because I think she's a really skillful player, and I'd say does things that other players won't think of, which can lead to chances there. But yeah, we still look good going forward, even with Vlock having probably a quiet match, which is not surprising really. She's incredibly young, and she's gone from people going who to being first name on the team sheet, so not surprising we should have the odd quiet match. But we've still got a lot of strength, I think, in the team going forward. And defensively, again, Walker's been excellent since she's come in. She hasn't had a bad game, and Barry and Vandermeer as well. So there's not a lot wrong with this side. I mean, we're going with loss, but really we're talking about one or two positions that we probably need to strengthen up or just get a little bit smarter at. And then we're still, I think, back being one of the better sides in the division.
Also, I'd like to point out we've played 2 games against City, and Holly Mack hasn't scored against us in either of them, so that's a win on its own, I think.
Yeah, very uncharacteristic of us in the last 2 games to concede so much from open play. Before that we were the defensive team. We kept them out from open play, and as soon as CJ Bott's gone, that's kind of just gone out the window. But going forward, some great positives to take out of that. Michaela Woods, especially, she had a great performance, really feisty, lots of grit. Defender turned attacker as well, may I add, which is really impressive to go from that. I'm a defender. I could not. Once you put me up front, I just get a nosebleed. I can't do it. We better talk about the next game. It's Canberra away on the 17th of January. So it's a Saturday at 5:30 p.m. local time, 7:30 p.m. New Zealand time. This is part of the Fever tour. So hopefully there should be a good away support there. Maybe they'll almost make up for the Nepalese. But what do you guys think of it?
But they said second in the table, or is that correct? So these 2 teams are good tests, for the next as to where they're at, and if you can get points, get points. The thing that gives me hope was the expected goals from the last match. We had 2.03 versus City at 1.67, and we had 17 shots. They had 10 shots on target, 5. They had 3. So we're still looking at the goal, scoring towards the goal, and that we'll have to do that, particularly with Michelle Heyman on the other side, also wanting to do that.
I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be my first time seeing the women live this season. Amazingly, it's 2026, and I still haven't seen them yet, so I'm looking forward to it. I don't think we've got anything we need to be scared of. We'll definitely need to be on our game, but I've seen a reason why we can't get a result against Canberra. I think from what I've seen, I think they're maybe slightly in a false position on the table. I don't think they're quite that good, and I think we're possibly in a false position in terms of our actual quality. So we've got an extra week to try and work out the problems. Again, Bev Priestman's very experienced, very smart coach. She'll know what the issues are. She doesn't need us to tell her, and I'm sure she'll be working on a solution to that. As I say, with our attacking with the strength we've got and with our attacking players, and we didn't really mention Brooke Nunn, but he's been excellent all season. Probably, almost certainly our most effective signing, really, and probably one of the least heralded, if you like. But she's just been excellent, and the crosses you've been putting in. If she's not scoring by crosses, then she's putting crosses on people's head. So she's been great. If she can keep up that, that quality of delivery, then I think Woods, Elliott, Main are all going to be there to put the ball in the back of the net. It's just, maybe can we keep them out of the other end? And that, again, will come down from the field. But as I said, don't think we've got anything to be scared of. I would back us to go down there and get a result.
I mean, what I like about Nunn is that she's tough looking. She's all tatted up, and she walks on the pitch, and you feel like this is someone who's a warrior. And she was signed. Let's see, Jale was signed, and she came back, and she's been doing very well. That we just have a little bit more sort of buck to us. A little bit more of, we're not the nice New Zealand team. Like, we're feared now, and I love that. Like, it's what you want as a fan, is to cheer on a bunch of people who are tough and are willing and gritty and willing to do that. And like I said, grabbing the ball out of the back of the net and say, let's go.
Yeah, I think if I came across Brooke Nunn in the opposition, I'd be terrified. I'd sub myself off. She's scary, man. But yeah, incredible player. I'm so glad that, we have her on our team. She's probably been, her and Grace Jale have been our two, I think, most consistently good and effective players on the pitch. But yeah, back to Canberra, I think that they're just a team who've just kind of, I guess, been doing the basics right. I mean, I guess they've kind of been silently just winning or doing well, that people kind of haven't really noticed them, but they're sitting second. Their last game they drew against Western Sydney, which is a bit of a crime, I think. But they did manage to beat Melbourne City. So, you don't know which Canberra you're going to get. I think effectively one-on-one defending, we kept Holly McNamara out of the game against City. We should be able to keep Michelle Heyman out of the game. And we just have to make sure that, we're not giving them these easy runs in behind. If we keep our structure, we don't let them play ball, then we should definitely be able to get a win out of this.
Even the game against City, we had options, right? We had opportunities. And I don't want to say we choked, but we just the balls could have been better. It could have been more precise with our finishing. But some of them were sitting very close. They were on platters, as you call it.
Yeah, I think we just left ourselves too much to do. You go 2-0 down, and it doesn't matter how well you play for the rest of the game, it's going to be difficult to win the game. And I might repeat myself when we talk about the men's game to say exactly the same thing. But yeah, we definitely had the chances. On another day, one of those goes in, we get a point out of that, and that would have been a good point. But on this occasion, it wasn't meant to be.
All right, I think we should move on to the men's game now. And, I feel like we could do a separate podcast for each half, but we'll start with the first half. And, just so sloppy. Adelaide shut us down really well in midfield. They basically had a wall, and they said, "You shall not pass," and we didn't pass. And they took Nagasawa out of the game, which kind of prevented us from moving forward. They marked him, and they shuffled side to side quite nicely when we tried to shift it out wide. Very, very windy as well. And you could see shots were being whipped everywhere. I was surprised that there wasn't a goal that was conceded, like an Olympico type thing, that was conceded just from the wind picking it up and carrying it into the net. Very hard to predict in that sort of weather. It kind of suited Eze a bit. I thought he should have done a wee bit better. He kind of got a few half chances to get in behind, but ultimately, as has been the case with him, they haven't really worked out. We'll talk about the first goal. It's a good ball in behind from Adelaide. Kelly Hill's a bit slow. I was a bit disappointed with his response to that. And, I feel, Army and Toa Edwards, it's kind of a shame that they're both unavailable for the same game and that you have to resort to playing Kelly Hill there. He also got a booking. We subbed him off at halftime, which I think was fair enough. A tidy finish for that goal. Rufer kind of misses the Adelaide player in his blind spot. Is this just a case of sloppy defending?
Yeah, I think it was sloppy. And Kelly Hill didn't have his best game. to be fair. He's not really a left wing back. When he's been playing well this season, he's had some great games. It's been part of his central, one of the central three. Putting him out wide, doesn't play to his strengths particularly. I don't think he's terrible. He got a bit of a slating. I don't think he's quite that bad, because although the player got his cross into the box, if Rufer had been more aware of the person by him, he would have blocked it out as well. So not great defending there, but half decent finish. This bit of deflection off Hughes, but it was probably going to go in anyway. Nothing McCarron can do about it. It's just one of those goals where a couple of half mistakes and they score, and that's it. But we didn't look good at all in this half. As you say, Nagasawa, I barely touched the ball. They completely marked him out, played around him. He was completely ineffectual. And I think Rufer, for the first maybe 15, 20 minutes as well, was also barely touching the ball. They just played right around us, and we just couldn't get out, couldn't get decent ball up front. I don't know if the conditions had a thing, but Piper's touch seemed to, not that he has a particularly brilliant touch. He normally has his effort works around the touch, but his touch definitely wasn't there, so he wasn't tracking it very well. Might be the wind on that as well. So we just didn't look like we were doing anything. It was pretty disappointing. I mean, the only upside of it was Tim Payne was back, and he looked fit, obviously for the first 60 minutes. And boy, he made a difference in terms of how quickly he gets up and gets back and is effective up there. He was really good. I was quite impressed, because last season when he came back from long-term injury, he was quite poor for a while. In fact, I don't actually really ever improve for the rest of that season. But certainly yesterday, he looked back to his best. That was promising. Yeah, we didn't look like we were going to create anything. They got a second goal, which was a half chance, but really well struck. And suddenly we're 2-0 down, and nothing looks like it's going to happen. So Chief had to do something, and as we saw, he did.
Like probably everyone else in the country, I was actually at the beach on Sunday because it was very, very hot all over the country, and I needed to do something else for my last day of freedom before I started work the next day. So I watched the first half of this on a pretty blurry stream, but even though it was, blurry, I could still tell that we were absolutely shit. It was just like a poor effort, especially from the effort they put in against Brisbane. To see them start with that half of football was just extremely disappointing. I think there's kind of two games, well, not two games in a row, but two games in the last three where Rufer's defensive efforts haven't quite been the same, isn't quite what you'd expect from a Rufer defense. And yeah, we kind of gave up these two goals, so I had to go cool off in the ocean at halftime to settle my nerves down. But completely different in the second half. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I think I said it before, but Brooke Smith on for Lucas Kelly-Heald at the half. Fair enough, as Lucas Kelly-Heald had a booking and he didn't really have the legs to deal with Adelaide's winger. In the second half, completely different story. We had a lot more territory, and pressure. Adelaide were forced to drop deep for most of that half. We switched to a back four as well, which allowed us to kind of match Adelaide in the midfield. And then, we were just kind of hammering Adelaide that whole half. I don't think they had a good chance. I don't even know if McCarron was forced into action once in that second half. And then finally the breakthrough comes through Hughes. Great delivery from Rami near post, and good work by Hughes to kind of wrap himself around that ball as well. And then later in the 60th minute, I think Payne sets up a great goal for Piper. Great work from Payne as well to get space down the wing. Kind of combines with Brooke Smith. And you realise just how much we missed him, not just defensively, but also going forward. Kind of those little shimmies he does on the wing to get around his man and, get it to the byline and cut it back. That's just exactly what we've been missing, kind of, the ability to offer something different and get the ball into the box. And the atmosphere just completely changed after that second goal. You start to get the feeling that we might actually be able to find a third and grab a win late on.
Yeah, it was, as you say, completely different game. And so new formation, so we went to 4 at the back, 2 at the back. It was probably closer to 2 at the back, to be perfectly honest, because Sheridan on the left was pushing really high up, and Payne was pushing really high up on the right. So really we only had James and Hughes at the back. And if I was an Adelaide fan, I would be so dark about how poor they were against that, because we were just pushing forward, because let's face it, lose by 3, lose by 2, it doesn't really matter. So we had to throw caution to the winds, which we did. They could have easily, if they had any kind of ball or composure, they could have put the ball into spaces there and probably run passes and scored a third goal. At least had some chances, but they didn't even have a single shot on goal in the second half. McCarron was a complete passenger, which is credit to our guys, absolutely credit to the Phoenix. But if I was Adelaide manager, I would be fuming because that's something they threw away. But it was a gamble by Chiefy, and it certainly worked, and it was really good to watch. Luke Brooks-Smith, I thought, probably had his best game for us since he started. He had, I think, a pre-assist, if there's such a thing, in both the goals. He made the corner, and then he put the ball to Payne, for Payne to put the cross across to Piper. And I thought he and Payne worked so well down that right-hand side. Really impressive to watch, just putting the ball through. Really impressive. And you could see the difference, not just because Brooks-Smith had come on in the half, but as soon as Payne went off and Rattray came on in that position, attack down the right-hand side basically dropped off by like 50%, because Rattray just can't get forward like Payne does. It's just not his game. Doesn't bomb at the wing, wasn't able to connect with Luke Brooks-Smith as well as Payne did. We just lost all that crossing from there. Now, Rattray's not useless. He hit the post with a really nice shot, which could have gone in. Maybe he stabilised a bit at the back, but yeah, we really missed Payne as soon as he went off. So that was disappointing, because it did look like we were going to get that third goal. I think we hit the woodwork twice. What I think was really good, that we were able to bring on people to make a difference. So Brooks-Smith came on and made a difference. Billy Usinich came on, and was a little bit lively as well. So we suddenly got these enforcements seem to be coming through, whereas previously it's like, okay, so which academy kid we're going to bring on, can he hold the line for us? Maybe that's it. But now, in fact, we bring out people on who can actually make a bit of difference. And as we've got new players coming in, that's just going to be even better with Tuiloma coming in defence. Yeah, looking good. So Rufer was a lot better in the second half. I thought Nagasawa was still reasonably quiet. I think he didn't have his best match. Najirine, I think, needs to do better if Milisanic is going to take his place. I don't think he's a bad player, but I think he's benefited from not having anyone really coming in to pick up his place. Najreen, I think he needs to be a bit more attacking, probably needs to shoot a bit more, have a bit more confidence in his own ability, because we know he's a pretty skillful player. And Mili Usanic, when he came on, looked quite neat on his feet, and then he had one good shot. I'll be interested to see if he gets a bit more game time going forward. So, yeah, in the end, it felt like we'd dropped 2 points. It felt like we should have won. I think over the whole game, we were probably the better side, although it was very, very much first half versus second half. But I think we were more dominant in the second half than they were dominant in the first half.
It's pretty similar stories between the men's and the women's, with the poor first half kind of going down 2-0 at halftime and then having to claw back in the second half. And I think the men just perhaps did it a bit better. They maybe gambled a bit more by just, going for the goals compared to the women's. But yeah, it's just absolute two different halves there, and it's kind of good to see that fight from the Raw game is still there. I thought we'd lost it. I thought it was going to be the case of we win one and then do nothing for 5 games and then we get one other win and we keep going. But yeah, I think we should be grateful that was Adelaide. I think against a much better team would be losing that by millions.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Danny, about the depth. I think the depth completely, I want to say won it for us. It felt like a win. In some regards it didn't. But compared to the feeling at halftime, it felt like a win. The depth, they solved that problem for us. I remember just a few weeks ago looking at the sub bench, and I was just like, who was that? And then this game, I was going down and I was like, A-League quality, A-League quality, A-League quality, A-League quality. And then I got to the reserve keeper. I was like, Chalabi, who was that?
Yeah, that was, I think, a bit of a shock for everyone. McCarron actually did well. First half, he didn't make any mistakes at all, I don't think. We can't blame him for either of the goals. And then he made a couple of good punches, came and got the ball. I think he had a goal kick, which I think pretty much reached the opposition goalkeeper straight away, maybe wind assisted. But he did well. Second half, he didn't actually have to do anything. So would have been interesting if Chalabi had to come on, just to see what he looked like, I guess, more than anything. 16 years old, apparently called back from holiday with his parents in Melbourne. So, be interesting times for the next game. Right? Hopefully Josh is back or fit enough to be on the bench at least.
Yeah, Josh was in the squad and I was a bit surprised that he wasn't on the bench. It'll be good to get him back. I don't see why we put him in the squad if he can't play, but I assume it must have been a late setback or something. It'll be really great to have him back. McCarron's good, but I think Josh is ahead of him at the moment. It's hard to have. How old's McCarron? 16, 17?
16 apparently.
16, wow.
Younger than Luke Brooks-Smith.
He's younger than me. It's ridiculous. Anyway, Rufo with a great chance late on. He gets a bit excited and kind of gets under the ball, which is a shame. You just know he would have loved a late winner. He would have done a knee slide or something cool. We hit the bar twice in the second half as well, I think. And it sounds a bit weird considering we were 2-0 down at halftime, but you get the feeling that we absolutely should have won that race in the second half. Anything else you guys want to say?
I guess just it's going to be interesting going forward because that team that played there, as you say, with depth coming back, with injury pain, Milicevic coming back from injury, Armiento back from suspension, and then we've got one, maybe two new signings coming in. There could be some players that have been almost ever present that we don't see much of for the rest of the season. If I was Lucas Kelly-Heald, I'd be pretty worried because we're going to have 3 first-choice centre-backs probably playing in these positions. And we've seen that left wing back probably not his first choice. Sheridan might also be getting a little bit nervous. I thought he played pretty well yesterday, actually. Not so great in the first half, but I thought he did well as a makeshift sort of left winger, getting him forward there. Again, not his natural position. I think at this stage I'm not sure what his natural position is. He just plays wherever he's told to. And then players like Najjarine, I think, should be getting nervous about his position as well. And people like Joanne Loke, he's going to be dropping down the pecking order a little bit as well. So, yeah, it could be almost a very different side for the next half of the season. Hopefully, that means we're a better side or a more consistently good side. Yet to be seen.
Yeah, Sander Carton, I hope I'm saying that right. He's the rumoured signing for Wellington Phoenix, and obviously Bill Tuiloma signed last week, I think. But, give him a look up if you're interested. Coming from Hearts on a loan, I believe. Not confirmed, but, just rumours for now. Next game against Sydney away at Allianz, also part of the FIFA Tour, so you can expect a big away contingent if they combine with the little corner of yellow as well. Sunday, the 18th of January. Sydney, they're in good form at the moment, second on the table. If they win this, they go above Auckland. Kind of a similar predicament to when we played Brisbane, with them going above Auckland if they beat us. So kind of torn a wee bit, but obviously you want the win. What do you guys think of this game?
It's going to be tough. Sydney, let's be honest, they're a better side than us. They're one of the best sides. In fact, it's really them and the Jaffers who are actually only any good this season. Everyone else is good on days and poor on other days. They can beat everyone on their particular day, and they're going to be terrible on other days. So those two are the only two sides that have been in any way kind of consistent, and they're decent. And Sydney are actually on a bit of a run as well. So realistically, we're not going to. We would do very well to beat them. I would be happy with a battling draw. I'd be very happy with a battling draw. I'd probably accept a battling, 1-0 loss, as long as we show the sort of the fight that we've shown in the last 2 matches, and that intention and that heart and that belief. I think I'd probably be reasonably happy with that. I'm not expecting too much more, and that's not because I don't rate the side. It's just that I just don't think we're quite there yet to compete with people like Sydney.
Is Sydney even going to have a pitch to play on? Or are we just going to delay this game until later in the season until all of our players are fit again?
I was in the stadium yesterday. The grass is looking nice and green.
Okay, well, there's that option down the drain. I just hope that we come out and we just perform well. And, I don't want to see another Melbourne victory game. I don't want to see another 5-1 that, gets everyone back and the chiefy out. This team sucks. I want to see them have a fight, have them actually compete. And, obviously we want to win, but I think being realistic with what we have, just having a good game that kind of doesn't send us into a backwards trend.
All right, I think on that note, we'll wrap up the podcast. So be sure to get to that game if you're in Sydney. And thank you so much for listening. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. we get way more views than we get good subscribers, so it'll be good to get that number up. But anyway, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Te ora.